Thank you so much, Bruce. It's such a pleasure, honor to be here, to be invited to be here at the SVA for Lumen, to be part of this is really a thrill. Bruce, thank you for inviting us. Trilby, for making us part of your master seminar. Very, very grateful. And thank you, Bruce, for being on our jury panel. Long may that relationship prosper. I have another group in the audience, if you'll let me refrain from starting just for a minute, that I'd like to thank. We're here in New York. Lumen Prize is here with its show in New York with to the good graces and thanks to the NYIT Fine Arts Department. And tonight in the audience we have Professor Ann Apteker, whose idea it was to start a master's program in exhibition and design at NYIT and have Lumen be part of the final project. We have some of the students who created that final project, which I hope you'll come see if you haven't seen it already, up at the auditorium on Broadway. I'd like the students and Ann to please stand up and take a little bow for all their hard work. And at the end of the row, a special thank you, and please stand up for the chair of the Fine Arts Department, our champion in NYIT, Terry Nauheim. Thank you, Terry. It's been so much fun working with you guys. Thanks so much. So what am I doing here? If any of you have had a moment or are curious to look at my past, you'll see that there's nothing in it that has to do with art. I've spent my entire career in journalism. Some people call it the dark arts. I'm a financial journalist by trade. I work for the Financial Times. I work for the Economist Group, Fortune magazine. None of that is artistic, so why am I here? Well, the answer to that story, like all good stories, the answer is my mom, of course. She was bringing me up, my siblings and me up, in the wilds of western Michigan, in the Midwest. I don't know if any of you have been out there. And she was a big city person, and she was counteracted this isolation that she felt by dragging me and my brothers to every cultural event she could find in our small town and around the area. And so from the tiniest age, I learned that art of all forms was what was important. If it was important to her, it was important to me. So I thought, what of the things that she showed me when I was little created the influences that brought me to be thinking about what I'm doing now? And I want to share those, one influence from my very earliest days, and then an influence that more recently prompted me to start thinking about something like Lumen. Does anyone in the room know what the picture in the upper left-hand corner is from? Anyone? Yes? No, that is Diego Rivera, Detroit Industry Cycle. But anyway, thank you for your good guess. That's in the Detroit Institute of Fine Art, and I figure Mom must have taken me there because we didn't have anything to do with Detroit after I was 5. So I must have been 3 or 4 when I was standing at the bottom of those murals looking up there, and I've been thinking about those murals ever since. I went into them, I lived in them, they were another world. I was inside Diego Rivera's mind. I later learned he was a communist. It all got very interesting to me. And in that mural and in that Detroit Institute of Fine Art was born my love of visual art, the immediacy of standing next to genius like that. In the lower right, does anyone know who painted that picture or what it is? Okay, we don't have any, we have a Hockney fan. So in January of 2012, David Hockney did a one-man show in the Royal Academy in London. It was called The Bigger Picture, and I went to it 3 times. In the gallery, he filled the whole museum, but in the gallery there was a room that was dark, completely dark. And in it were iPads. And these were iPad pictures that he had painted. And I found myself standing there explaining to people, yes, those are pictures that were done on an iPad. I had begun to think at that point that I wanted to get out of journalism and I wanted to start something that would promote what I saw as the mixture of art and technology. And when I saw Hockney's exhibit in January 2012, I thought, I'm inspired. There's something out there that's happening with the new wave of technology that might be influencing art and technology. And I found that picture of rural Yorkshire a real influence and made me feel confident that there were artists all around the world. I figured they had to be all around the world doing stuff that might be just as interesting to look at. I wanted to fill my screen. I lived in Wales at the time. I wanted to fill my iMac with pixels cascading in of pictures of this kind of brilliance. So here we go. This is a montage of Lumen 2014. You can see immediately that my hunch was pretty good. They were out there. I had this crazy idea that I could open up a competition. If you had $40, you could enter. You could send me 2 pictures. You could send in 2 pictures. And people like Bruce and others like him might be interested in helping me find the best. And then, because it was digital, we could put it on a USB stick or a hard drive and take it around the world. So that was how the Lumen Prize idea got started. Nobody told me I couldn't do it. And people kept saying, what a great idea. So what I'm going to talk about now is not just the 2014 exhibit. If you'll bear with me, what I'd like to talk about in my, I forgot to turn the thing on. In my brief talk is to talk a little bit about the history of the prize and look at some of the early winners and the development. I'd also like to take up where Bruce left off in how the world sees digital art and how the world and the art world classifies digital art, because this is what's exercising my mind now. Why have I put a picture of the Houses of Parliament? I wanted to start by saying that the world until this building was built in 1850 was made up of solid and porous. And solid was buildings like this, which represented art and technology in 1850, and porous was intangibles like love and belief, religion, faith, beauty. But what happened after this is that the world became, with electronics and communications and microwaves and GPS, it became porous. So here's where I'm staying in Brooklyn, thanks to the good graces of a friend who's in this room now. This is a Richard Meyer building, built entirely, almost entirely, I guess, of cement and glass. And when I sit in it, I can see Grand Army Plaza below me. And I think this porous nature is what's influencing the way we're all seeing our art and technology today, which is what's changed. This is the context for me of art and technology now, is the porous nature of our lives. The fact that containment, whether of information or material, concept or emotion, is difficult. And our world, unlike that of our parents or our grandparents, feels porous on every level. And into this, I feel, is a new set of tools that allows the artist to use art and technology to communicate with all of us. Hal Peirce, who's the head of Bell Telephone Labs in 1960, talked about the earliest computer art, the sort of work that Bruce was talking about. And he said in 1960 that, commenting on the mixture of art and technology, artists must learn to use the possible in creating their work, and technologists must reach out for the impossible. So what's changed from when Hal Peirce said that is that the impossible is now in the artist's hand. This phone has as much power as NASA had when it put 2 men on the moon, multiples of power. And this is just an iPhone 5C, nothing fancy. So those of you who can remember, probably no one in this audience, but the Cray supercomputer, multiples of power from the Cray. And the Cray was what invented those first CGI for Tron in 1982. And even the Cray released in 1990, multiples. So that's what's in an artist's hand today, the impossible. I know what some of you are thinking. This is the privilege of the middle class of the first world. In fact, I use my journalism training to have a little look. By 2017, half of the world will be owning a smartphone. Half of those who have mobile phones will be having smartphones. And a third, that's 1 out of 3 in the planet, will have a smartphone. That's across all countries. It's not just America. So the ubiquitousness of these tools are just flying around the world, and that's what I think causing this new revolution. Okay, why is Van Eyck here? I have heard that he was one of the first users of oil paints, so I had a little look. Hobby Lobby, anyone know what 350 is? That's the number of oil paint colors you can buy from Hobby Lobby. And underneath that number, for next to the iPad 2, a number of colors if you've got the time to find them in the iPad 2. So that's the world that I was just amazed to find out was inside these tools. I'm now going to take you on a little quick trip around the top works of the first 3 years of the Lumen Prize. Let's start with our first winner. And as I go through these, I'm going to be calling up to your mind, how do you classify them? Because I want you to go away and solve this one for me, because it's still a mystery to me how we classify them. Okay, so you see I put up on the top neo-surrealism or photomontage. The contemporary art world would call it photography. Friends of mine have walked into the shows and said, it's photography, not for me. I see it as a mixture of Magritte and Ernst. The picture evokes tension and calm, lightness and weight. It floats, it's tethered. It has so much, it spoke so much to me. This was our first winner, and I'm still falling into that world that the artist created for me. I'm now going to show you the winner of our second year. So if you can bear with me, I'm going to show just a little bit of the clip of this. This is a piece done by a Greek artist who lives in London. It's an animation. These are how she created her metaphors in Cinema 4D, the bus, the destruction of the Greek economy, and then the birds coming into the bus cage to produce a sense of lightness and renewal. Sorry to have to turn it off, but I have a limited amount of time. If you want to see it, please go to the Lumen Prize site. It's beautiful. And I would say, no, that's not animation. It's poetry. It speaks volumes about what she's thinking about emigration and the issues that are facing Greece today. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about the geographic spread of the artist. So it's no prizes for guessing that the upper right-hand corner was created by an artist in Quito, Ecuador, and the one in the left-hand side was created by an artist in Tehran. And to me, that kind of sums it up, how artists see their worlds and how they choose to use the modern technology to describe their worlds. By the way, there's no photography in the upper right. That was entirely created on the artist's computer. No prizes for guessing what this artist does in her day job. All right, so she makes video games, and quite a few of the entries are from people in the gaming sector. And again, I just fall into this world. I love it. It is clouds in a city and a magical scape. She creates backdrops for Second Life, and we had quite a few of the people who work in those worlds of gaming enter the prize. This is one of my favorite pieces. It's a still from a time-based work. It's called Glitch Art, and the artist who did it is basically using animated GIFs, and he calls it an organic horror video about the terror of entropy. Again, another world that I could go into, and I love being in it. Now, is it a collage? Is it glitch art? What do we call it? I think when we can sort out some of these nomenclature questions, digital art will seamlessly flow into the contemporary art world that Bruce was talking about. Let's talk about landscapes. One of my favorite landscapes, it's from last year. The artist used rendering, he used 3D, he used all kinds of different kinds of technology, but at the heart, to me, this is a landscape, and I find it very, very almost intoxicating. The shows have changed in the 3 years since we've done them. In this show, there were 38 stills. It was a 50-piece show. We've shortened it now to 25. And of the 28 that qualified this year, only 8 were stills. This is an example of one of the interactive pieces called Murmur. And if you've been to the NYIT show, you'll see it in action, but you speak into it, and your voice turns into that magical expression of light. Is it performance art? Is it a light painting? How do you describe a picture like that? When you've got the answer, please let me know. This one is an interactive piece that uses Kinect, and those little people in the gray t-shirt, that's me 1,000 times. It's just a really engaging piece. I'm playing, it's called Garden of Earthly Delight, and playing on Bosch. Very, very beautiful piece using a lot of MacBook and technology. I'm going to play a piece for you about this one. Again, is it a video game or is it a kind of a gallery for art? Have a quick look at this.
Look closer, Hootie. I might be near.
Sorry. Right. I stopped it just because I felt there was a lot still that I'd like you to see. But before I leave that game, I just wanted to say those two that created that game with the Hieronymus Bosch and all that consider themselves graphic designers, not artists. Now that the game is out, they say, they say that gaming is one of the big growing fastest forms of video art. So think about that again, that games are also providing video art. Sorry about screwing up on the slides. So where have we got to now? Let me talk a little bit about Lumen. After this show closes, we'll be going to Amsterdam, and we'll be going to, we have a big show in London. We've just closed a show at the Onassis Cultural Center in Athens. We started off these shows in bookshops and not friends' houses, but friends' places. So it's grown, and it's growing fast. I had an email this morning from a private bank in Switzerland that said they had 19,000 square foot building. With that, could we do some digital art? I went, probably, yeah. This is one of my favorite shows, however. This is Lumen's only, at the moment, client, and I hope we'll have more. This is the Financial Conduct Authority of the UK, and it's like the SEC. And if you get called into their lobby, you're probably in trouble if you're in the banking profession. They wanted something calming and soothing, so they installed a video wall, and we curate it. And that is one of the pieces from the 2014 show. And you can see in the corner another piece. They give us a party, and they have drinks, and they think it's wonderful, and we think they're wonderful. And they pay us. So digital art in the public space is becoming a reality, which is a fantastic thing for artists as well as for Lumen. And this is another example of me interacting with digital art in the public space. These people will be our host for our show in January. This is the Amsterdam Art Hotel. It's an art hotel chain across Europe, and they happen to have this interactive curtain. And when they set it up, they didn't realize you have to keep filling it with new art. So luckily we were here to help. And we're working with artists who now curate for this curtain. And hopefully they'll decide that they want one in all of their hotels. And what could be better to have art into places like this? I hope you'll agree. Now it's my absolute pleasure to introduce to you a short video that was created by the winner of the 2014 Lumen Prize. He's called Andy Lomas, and sadly he couldn't be here tonight. He wanted to be, but he couldn't. So he sent over a 5-minute video of talking about his work. And I hope you'll agree that, again, his work, like Neo-Surrealist and the other works that I showed you, glitch, interactive painting, and these new words that we're coming up with, that there will be a word for what Andy does too. I don't have it yet, but I hope that you out there will come up with it and talk to your friends about it and spread the word, because for me, this is just mind-blowingly beautiful. I feel his work, along with the other Lumen works in the past 3 years, have provided an amazing array of ingenuity and, in many cases, brilliance. And I'm absolutely certain that my mother would have loved it all. Thank you.
Cellular forms is the latest stage in a body of work that I've been developing over a number of years called morphogenetic creations. Inspired by Alan Turing, Ernst Haeckel and Darcy Thompson, this work looks at the relationship between growth and form. The aim in cellular forms was to create a richly emergent system for generating very complex organic structures based on morphogenetic processes. The system uses a simplified model of growth by cellular division, taking inspiration from biology, but not trying to emulate any specific organism, and trying to be computationally efficient enough to be run with many millions of cells to create the level of detail that I believe can be biologically convincing rather than just mathematically organised. The project also has aesthetic goals, both for myself and the viewer. I'm interested in exploring the emergent nature of form created by growth systems, and results that may be challenging rather than conventionally beautiful. What unexpected but aesthetically strong results can be achieved? The process is one of emergent exploration rather than directorial control. I'm also interested in the reactions of viewers. I believe there is something deep in human psychology that results in strong reactions to complex organic things. From reactions to the sublime, such as moments of epiphany when viewing the beauty of nature, to disgust and revulsion when faced with disease and decay. What happens when forms are presented in a more abstract manner, not designed to represent any one particular thing in nature, but still retain an almost overwhelming degree of organic complexity? The system I'm using for cellular forms models cells as simple particles that are linked to a set of neighbours. Each simulation starts with the same ball of cells. The system contains rules for when particles are selected for splitting, which are based on accumulated levels of nutrient. When the nutrient level in a cell exceeds a given threshold, it splits, and both the parent and daughter cells are reconnected back to the neighbours. There are forces between the linked cells which create dynamic tensions in the structure, creating motion as it develops over time. By altering the rules for generating nutrient, how cells split, and the forces between cells, a remarkably wide range of different organic structures can be created. One additional force that was added was one that repels cells that are in close proximity but not directly connected. This adds an important constraint that helps induce structural coherency. The presentation is kept deliberately simple, the aim being to show the generated forms with as few biases as possible. I use a number of methods to turn the data into visible artifacts, with each technique highlighting different aspects of the generated forms. Structures are either rendered using an external representation, where cells are shown using spherical primitives that are illuminated with a perfectly diffuse light from all directions, or by using a density accumulation X-ray technique that reveals internal structures that aren't apparent in the surface renders. As well as animations, I also create very high-resolution still images of the final forms. These allow an appreciation of detail in the structures that isn't always apparent when viewing moving images. By contrast, the animations from the simulations reveal dynamic behaviour and what appear to be different phases in the development of the structures as they are grown. A number of emergent behaviours are seen to come from the simulations. These include complex structured folding and coherent pulses of cell growth in waves across the surfaces. Variation in how nutrient is created and how fast it diffuses from one cell to another can also have dramatic effects on the nature of the generated structures. In particular, when nutrient is generated by light, if that light is restricted to only come from above, much more plant-like structures are generated, with the forms bifurcating into complex branches. One of the main things the work tries to explore is why complex organic forms can create such a visceral range of reactions in viewers. Even though all that is being presented are typically arrangements of simple spheres, responses range from comments such as mesmerically beautiful through to terrifying or even disturbing. As I have said, the aim with cellular forms wasn't to directly emulate any specific biological structures, but to create a system with rich emergence. A wide variety of structures are seen, but it is interesting that all appear to have a strong sense of the familiar, with echoes of organic structures that we are commonly used to seeing. This raises questions about the available range of structures that organisms created by processes of growth can take. What constraints as well as opportunities for complex structure does the process of growth impose?